Sports Spectacular, here we go. Larry Smith, Brad Sturdy, Mike Cagley. Glad you're with us here as we get into November. And by the way, don't forget to turn your clocks back. Yes, you can sleep in tomorrow, and hopefully you're sleeping happily with an Illinois win. The Illini, after a bye week, they are at Minnesota this weekend, Saturday afternoon. We're, of course, going to talk about that. Matt Stevens joining us in a few moments here. It is a big show. We have a special new member of the Illini guys joining us at the bottom of the hour. Gabe Akis is here. We've got Adalia McKenzie here in the second hour, and the great Danny Sheridan in hour number 2, the veteran college football analyst. He's going to talk about some of the coaching storylines that we should be paying attention to here in November. So when we say we're packed, we are packed. They come knocking on our door saying, hey, how can I get some of this juice? And we're sure to pour them a glass. Listen, we want to start, though, with the passing of Bob Knight, a longtime Indiana coach. If you liked him or you didn't, certainly great respect for what he did in his career. 6th all-time leadingest coach, passes away Wednesday at the age of 83.
Yeah, fantastic basketball coach. It just, there's obviously the other side of it as well. The personal relationships and sometimes, he's a flawed human being in some ways, but we all are. His just happened to be more public when he does it. But no question that he's a great basketball coach. 3 national titles in Indiana, last undefeated team, right? 19 was it 76?
76, yeah, beat Michigan, yeah.
Yeah, I look at him as one of 2 guys that I put as the epitome of competitors, and Pete Rose and Bob Knight, and the 2 of them both had problems with the ability of turning the competitive switch off that left parts of their lives in rough spots because of that competitive drive that went to, as they say in Spinal Tap, it went to 11. And but nonetheless, there was no doubt he was one of the legendary coaches who had quite an effect on the game for a long period of time.
Yeah, Bob Knight, 83 years old. When I saw Mike Krzyzewski over the last decade, 15 years of his career, I saw Bob Knight. I mean, the same temperament, and also a very great X's and O's coach as well. Let's just give him credit for that. Bob Knight, rest in peace. Maybe he and Lou Henson are drawing up some plays right now up there past the pearly gates. Let's talk Illini football right now. 2 weeks ago, this was a tough loss, 25-21. They had a 21-7 lead against Wisconsin. Let that slip away. And guys, now here we go. Heading into November, the good thing is that you've got 4 games that on paper are winnable. The question is, how many wins can they get? Can they get enough to get to that magical 6-win mark and qualify for a bowl?
Well, they can. Now, will they? I mean, I think game against Wisconsin was really a game that was almost like a make or break game for the season. I mean, if they win that game, hold on, they win. They're 4-4. The narrative going into the bye week is totally different at 4-4 than it is at 3-5. Now, Minnesota is not great. There's no doubt. We can't say Minnesota's great. Illinois has handled them the last 2 times they've played. Obviously, this is a matchup they can handle. But yeah, I just think you got to win 3 out of 4. None of the teams they're playing are world beaters. Iowa's got great defense, but they don't even play offense. They just punt first down, right? Was that not what they do? But anyway, and then you've got other teams that are, Indiana can be good on days. They're much like Illinois, Northwestern also. Same, can be good, really good one day, not so great the other day. So you've got 4 winnable games. It's like put up or shut up time, right?
Yeah, the task in front of them becomes much more possible if they win at Minnesota. Not a given, not easy. But if you had that, you can see the path. If you have that W, you can see the pathway to making it to a bowl. It becomes much more difficult if you have to go 3 for 3 with a team that hasn't won more than 1 in a row all season.
Yeah, and all of a sudden the game against Northwestern at season's end is no longer a gimme, right? The Wildcats are just knocked off Maryland that looked like, not world beaters, but they were undefeated just a couple weeks ago, and now all of a sudden they've lost 3 in a row. losing against Northwestern. Guys, and here's what I'm looking for, and we've talked about this before with all the programs: football, men's basketball, women's basketball. I think this month really goes to define what your culture is going into 2024 and how much have you really gained in that. We've talked about Brett Bielema coming in year one, changing the culture to where in last year in 2022, we saw a team that actually walked onto the field and believed they could win, right? Can you get that swagger back? And I think these 4 games will determine that. Do you have that swagger where you believe you can make it happen? This team can grow up in a hurry if they can get 3 wins or 4 wins, or they can go the other way and have a lot of question marks in the offseason.
Yeah, no question. I mean, I think, if you fall apart down the stretch and you finish 3-9, it's not good, right? I mean, you're in a really bad place. I mean, because, we always say it's not linear necessarily, but I think it's conceivable that they really need to go 5-7 or 6-6 to feel good about their season, feel like they're making progress. And so I think that's that's reasonable.
You don't want to go, as Matt Stevens has said, 0-3 against 3 rookie coaches, and then also lose to Indiana and Northwestern all in the same season. That is not a good look for the Illinois program, especially on the recruiting trail.
Yeah, and Indiana Northwestern, by the way, at home. It's also something else, too. You mentioned Mr. Stevens. Let's bring him in right now. Matt Stevens, he's the Illini Guys senior football writer and analyst for IlliniGuys.com, always the man on the scene. Matt, I know we've talked off air about this game. You feel this really is a game for Illinois to win. They should go in and take care of business against the Gophers.
I picked Illinois to win. And the only reason I picked Illinois to win is I feel like the task is at hand in twofold for Illinois. One is hang on for 30 minutes, because after 30 minutes, you're going to get a first-round draft pick and an All-American on your defense and Johnny Newton. And I feel like if Illinois is either like tied or down by 3 at half, they've got to feel great going into the locker room because they know they've got Johnny Newton coming back and he can cause problems. 2 is Minnesota is one-dimensional offensively. I'm sorry. I'm not buying their quarterback. I don't think anybody in the league is. And the guy that just ran for 204 yards for them last year had a grand total of 6 carries for 20 yards his entire career before that. So can he replicate that like Chase Brown-esque type performance? Maybe, especially against an Illinois defense that has kind of struggled to stop the run this year. But I'm not banking on it, because I don't know if Minnesota has enough offense to, put Illinois out of the football game early. And if they don't put Illinois out of the football game early, I've looked at this defense, or I looked at this Illinois offense the same way that these coaching staffs have in their sales scout. And I don't think Illinois is ever out of a football game offensively. They're the one rare Big Ten West team that I think is ever not out of a football game. They have almost as many big plays as anybody else in the league, meaning plays over 20 yards. And I've looked at this statistically, they're 25% better at scoring touchdowns this year in the red zone than they have been at any other point in the Brett Bielema era. So I think Illinois has got a really, really good shot to win this football game. And then if they win this football game, like you guys had said, the magical number of 6 and the bowl eligibility and the 15 practices that might be the most valuable thing for this program are right back on the table.
Matt, well, how do you replace Johnny Newton for a half? I mean, because your game plan is obviously going to change and Minnesota's game plan changes at halftime too, right? I mean, because he is probably the most dominant defensive player in the league, and I don't think that's hyperbole. I think he is. He's a guy that everybody game plans for. How do you change? How does Illinois change, and how does it affect Minnesota?
You hope like hell that 88 Keith Randolph can be healthy on Saturday, because if that's the case, and then you get 2022 Keith Randolph back and healthy, I think that changes the dynamic. Now, you'd love to have both 88 and 4 on that line, and you will in the second half if Keith is healthy enough to go. But if Randolph is healthy enough to go, that at least plugs the hole that Johnny would have had, especially at the inside. And then you get a unbelievable performance, just like you did in Maryland, whether it's from Bryce Barnes, whether it's from Gabe Yakus with his hand in the ground, whether it's from somebody else in this defense, a Jeremiah Warren who's a freshman, whether it's a Ced McConnell who's come on as an underclassman, you have to, for 30 minutes of football, you have to get some sort of unbelievable performance out of somebody who they think they're capable of rising to the potential, i.e. maybe a Gabe Yakus. And if you can get that, and then you get a first-round draft pick almost like instantly in a trade coming out of the locker room, then I think Illinois has the momentum going into the last 30 minutes of this football game. And I think that this defense can handle itself. But you saw in the last 10 minutes of that Wisconsin game, guys, that when Johnny Newton left the field, this defense just could not get any kind of pass rush, and they cannot have that for the first 30 minutes against Minnesota. Somebody has to step up, whether that's a healthy Keith Randolph or somebody else in Terrence Jameson's D-line room.
Minnesota hasn't really shown the ability to pass the ball. Are they going to try to do it on the ground against Illinois? And can Illinois, even Newtonless, hold Minnesota down?
I don't think PJ has any other choice, because I think if you put the game in the hands of their quarterback, he has yet to win one on his own this year. And I think that there is a major drop-off from what they've had at quarterback for the last, 18 years, and the same guy that they've started in the PJ Fleck era, it seems like, than this quarterback that they're starting now. I don't think that they can make it strictly a throw game. And I don't, and because Wisconsin in the Phil Longo, air raid option offense, they were fine with making it strictly a throw game if that's what they needed to do, if Illinois couldn't have a pass rush. I don't think Minnesota's set up that way. I don't think they're capable of winning a football game that way, and I think PJ knows it. I think if Minnesota is going to build a gigantic lead in this first 30 minutes, it's going to have to be running the football straight down the throat of Illinois. And I think that's how PJ thinks he's going to be able to get his first win against Brett Bielema. The problem is I think Illinois and Aaron Henry know that, and I wouldn't be shocked if they load the box and make this quarterback have to beat them, especially in the first half.
Can't wait for the game to see if Illinois can improve to 4-5 on the season. Matt Stevens, we appreciate your time as always.
Not a problem. Have a good one, guys.
All right, Matt Stevens, IlliniGuys.com, senior football writer and analyst. And by the way, be sure to stay with IlliniGuys.com all day Saturday. Not only Matt's preview piece, but also he'll have post-game video from the teams, stories, you name it. And, of course, we've got our quick podcast as well. Immediately after the game, we record our quick thoughts, and we put it out there as well for you on Eye on the Illini, wherever you get your podcast. IlliniGuys.com. We got you covered. Keep it here. We'll hear more about the Gophers from the other side. Mike caught up with the Minnesota Golden Gophers insider as part of the Eye on the Illini podcast series. We'll hear a piece of that. And Gabe Yakus joins us as well, sophomore linebacker, right here on the Sports Spectacular, powered by IlliniGuys.com. Heard all along the Illini Guys Radio Network.